Have you ever wondered why, after 60, your energy fades, your intimacy weakens, and your blood flow just isn't what it used to be? What if I told you the problem might be hiding right on your plate, masked as healthy vegetables that are quietly damaging your circulation, robbing you of your vitality, and making intimacy harder with each passing year? I'm Dr. James. For over 30 years, I've worked closely with men over 60, helping them reclaim their strength, restore their energy, and rebuild the intimacy they thought they had lost forever. And time after time, I've seen the same silent thread at work: the wrong foods, especially certain vegetables, silently choking off blood flow where it matters most. Now I know that sounds backwards. Aren't vegetables supposed to be good for you? That's the paradox. Some are, but others, especially four that I'll reveal shortly, can have the opposite effect in aging men. They interfere with blood vessels, disrupt nitric oxide, and slowly chip away at your ability to feel alive, vibrant, and connected. In this video, I'll show you the 4 vegetables you must avoid and why they're especially harmful after 60. You'll also learn how to eat for better blood flow, stronger intimacy, and sharper confidence at any age. And keep listening, because one of these vegetables is probably in your kitchen right now, and most men have no idea how much damage it's doing until it's too late. Before we dive in, if you care about restoring your energy, circulation, and intimacy after 60, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, so you never miss another video created specifically for your health and vitality. And if you find this helpful, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0, so I can improve and better serve your needs. Alright, now let's get into it, starting with the root of the problem that most men overlook: why blood flow naturally declines after 60, and how certain vegetables surprisingly can make that decline even worse. Understanding this is the first step to restoring your energy, your intimacy, and the strong circulation your body still wants to give you. 1. Why blood flow declines after 60, and how vegetables can make it worse. When I first started practicing medicine, I thought I understood blood flow. I could quote the textbooks, name every artery, and explain the mechanisms. But it wasn't until I really sat down, with older men in my clinic that I began to grasp how deeply blood flow impacts a man's life. Not just physically, but emotionally, intimately, spiritually. It's not just about circulation, it's about connection. It's about waking up with energy, feeling strong in your body, feeling present with the person lying next to you. And yet after 60, I watched so many good men lose that connection. Not suddenly, but slowly, quietly. A little less drive, a little more fatigue. Erections that used to be effortless, now weak, unreliable, or gone altogether. And almost every time they'd ask me the same question: "Doc, is this just aging?" And I'd tell them the truth. It's common, yes, but it's not inevitable. Because the real issue is that blood flow doesn't stop, it gets blocked. And more often than not, we're the ones unknowingly putting up the roadblocks. You see, after 60, your blood vessels start to change. The lining of your arteries, called the endothelium, begins to stiffen. The production of nitric oxide, your body's natural artery relaxer, slows down. That's like taking the foot off the gas in your circulatory system. Without enough nitric oxide, your vessels can't expand the way they used to, and blood struggles to reach your extremities, especially the pelvic region. The result? Cold hands, cold feet, and yes, a cold bedroom. Now here's where it gets more surprising. Most men try to eat healthy to fight this. And of course, vegetables are the first thing we think of. Doctors have been saying it for decades. Eat your vegetables, right? But here's what they don't always say. Not all vegetables are helpful after 60. In fact, some of them can quietly make things worse. It's not that vegetables are bad, but as our bodies age, we process certain foods differently. Some plant compounds that were once harmless or even beneficial can begin to interfere with your hormone balance, your nitric oxide levels, and the integrity of your blood vessels. And the really frustrating part? These changes are slow, almost invisible. You might not even notice until you're sitting across from your partner, wondering why your body doesn't respond the way it used to, or why the spark seems to have dimmed. I remember a patient named Ronald. He was 68, retired, active, ate what most would call a clean diet. Lots of salads, lean meats, and yes, vegetables. But he came to me feeling tired, foggy, and disconnected. He hadn't had a full, satisfying erection in over a year, and he blamed himself. Maybe I waited too long to get help, he told me. But when we looked closely at his diet, and especially the types of vegetables he was eating every day, we saw something most people overlook. Certain vegetables were interfering with his body's ability to circulate blood efficiently, especially where it mattered most. The truth is, after 60, your body needs different support. It needs circulation-friendly foods, not ones that clog the flow. It needs hormonal balance, not hidden plant estrogens. And it needs clean arteries, not ones inflamed by unnecessary additives like BPA or excess sodium. So what does that mean for you? It means that if you're still struggling with low energy, weak intimacy, or a general feeling of decline, even if you think you're eating well, it's time to look deeper. Because it may not be age, it may not be genetics. It might be a handful of vegetables on your plate doing more harm than good. And now I want to take you into the specifics. 4 vegetables that I've seen time and time again causing problems in men over 60. Vegetables that disrupt blood flow, weaken nitric oxide, and slowly rob you of the intimacy and vitality you deserve. The first one? You've probably had it in the last week. It's often marketed as a healthy protein alternative, but for aging men, it could be quietly tipping the balance in all the wrong ways. Let's take a closer look. 2. Soy-based vegetables. Edamame soy sprouts. Let me tell you something I wish more men knew. If I could go back and whisper one truth into the ear of every man turning 60, it would be this. Not everything labeled healthy is healthy for you. Especially not now, not with your hormones shifting, your circulation slowing, and your body fighting harder than ever to stay balanced. And one of the worst offenders I see over and over again? Soy-based vegetables. I'm talking about edamame, soy sprouts, tofu in disguise, all the little plant-based options that seem innocent, even smart, but that quietly chip away at your masculinity from the inside out. Now, before you tune me out, let me be clear. I'm not trying to start a war against plants. I'm a doctor. I love nutrition. But I also deal in reality. And the reality is this. For men over 60, soy-based vegetables can disrupt your body in powerful, damaging ways. Here's why. These foods are rich in compounds called phytoestrogens, plant-based chemicals that mimic estrogen in the body. And that's a problem, because as you age, your natural testosterone levels are already declining. You're already producing less of the hormone that supports muscle, confidence, energy, and sexual function. So when you introduce more estrogen-like compounds into your system, especially from your daily meals, you push that balance even further out of alignment. The result? Your testosterone drops even lower. Your estrogen rises. And that small internal shift, it leads to very real, very frustrating changes. Men come into my office telling me they feel soft, sluggish, unmotivated. They're not sleeping well, they're gaining weight around the middle. Their sex drive has vanished, or when it's there, their body doesn't cooperate. And they're confused because they've been eating healthy. They've been snacking on edamame, throwing soy sprouts into their salads, choosing tofu over meat. They think they're doing everything right. But the truth is, those choices are feeding the wrong signals into their body. Phytoestrogens bind to hormone receptors. They lower nitric oxide production. They make blood vessels less flexible. That means less blood reaches the penis during arousal. That means less oxygen and nutrients flowing to the tissues that need them to stay strong and responsive. And that means more nights of frustration, embarrassment, and quiet retreat from intimacy. One patient of mine, his name was Gerald, he came in looking defeated. He was 66, recently retired, and trying to live better. He'd cut back on red meat, stopped drinking, started eating plant-based, but in 6 months his energy had plummeted. He said, "Doc, I don't even recognize myself anymore. I don't feel like a man." I looked at his diet. Soy protein bars, soy milk, edamame 3 times a week. He had unknowingly replaced one problem with another. When we took soy out and replaced it with testosterone-friendly foods, the change was dramatic. Within weeks, his drive returned. Within months, he told me his wife was smiling again. They were talking more, touching more, laughing again. I'm not saying soy is poison for everyone, but for you, if you're over 60, if you're feeling the shift in your body, if your intimacy is fading, this is one of the first places I'd look. Because soy is sneaky. It's everywhere. It hides in protein powders, snacks, frozen meals, and if you're not watching, it can sabotage everything you're working to restore. Now here's where this gets even more frustrating. Most doctors won't tell you this. It's not in your basic nutrition guides, and for younger men or women, soy may not have the same effect, but your body is in a different season. You need blood flow to be prioritized. You need testosterone to be preserved, and you cannot afford to feed your system estrogen imitators and expect to feel strong, driven, and alive. So if you've been trying to get your intimacy back, if you've been wondering why your erections aren't what they used to be, or why the closeness with your partner feels out of reach, this may be a big part of the answer. Cut the soy. Give your body a break from those signals, and give your manhood a chance to breathe again. And believe it or not, soy isn't the only plant culprit. There's another vegetable coming up that most people think is heart healthy, but in older men, it can starve your muscles of oxygen and leave you cold, foggy, and struggling in the bedroom. It's in your fridge right now, and it's probably the last thing you'd expect. Let's talk about it. 3. Eggplant. Let me tell you about a vegetable most people never question, one that's praised in cookbooks, Mediterranean diets, and even heart health articles. It's colorful, versatile, and often roasted with olive oil like a gourmet side dish. But for men over 60, this vegetable can quietly work against your circulation and intimacy. I'm talking about eggplant. Yes, eggplant. That dark purple vegetable sitting in the produce aisle with the shiny skin and the friendly label. You've probably eaten it in lasagna or stir-fries, maybe grilled with garlic and herbs. But very few people realize that eggplant contains a compound that can actually interfere with blood flow, especially in aging men who are already fighting against narrowing arteries and slower nitric oxide production. The compound is called niacin. It's a type of antioxidant found in the skin of eggplant. Now I know what you're thinking, aren't antioxidants good for us? And yes, in many cases they are, but this one has a unique behavior. Niacin binds to iron in your blood, locking it up and making it harder for your body to use. And that's a problem, because iron is the very thing that helps carry oxygen through your bloodstream. And without proper oxygen, your blood doesn't nourish your muscles, it doesn't fuel your brain, and most importantly, it doesn't deliver what your body needs to support strong, sustained erections. I remember a patient, Thomas, 71, retired engineer, very disciplined man. He cooked most of his meals, watched his salt, exercised. But he came to me with a quiet frustration. Doc, I'm doing everything right, but I feel heavy. I'm foggy, and I just don't have the drive I used to, not physically, not emotionally. When we dug deeper into his eating habits, we found that he had started eating eggplant almost every day. He loved the flavor and thought he was doing himself a favor, but in his case, the frequent intake of niacin was contributing to low iron bioavailability, meaning his blood wasn't delivering oxygen where he needed it most, especially below the belt. And here's the part that really matters. When blood can't move freely, when oxygen can't reach the tissues in the penis and pelvic floor, the result isn't just physical, it becomes emotional. Intimacy begins to fade. You may still love your partner deeply, but the connection starts to feel strained. You avoid closeness because your body doesn't respond, and that creates shame, distance, and even resentment. It's heartbreaking, and yet it can all be traced back to something as simple and fixable as what's on your plate. Most men never consider eggplant to be a threat. It's not greasy or processed. It's not fried or full of sugar. It seems innocent. But your body at 60 or 70 is not the same as it was at 30. Your vessels are more sensitive. Your hormone levels are more delicate. Your circulation is harder to protect. And the foods you choose matter more now than they ever have. So if you're struggling with low energy, poor arousal, or a growing distance between you and the woman you love, don't overlook this vegetable. If eggplant is a regular part of your meals, consider reducing it or eliminating it for a few weeks. Pay attention to how you feel. Sometimes it's the subtle changes, the quiet tweaks that bring the most powerful results. And before you think you've dodged the worst of it, there's one more that's far more dangerous than most men realize. This next one hides in nearly every pantry, masquerading as a tomato-based staple. But the real danger doesn't come from the tomato itself, it comes from the can it's stored in. What's inside that can may be leaking a synthetic chemical that mimics estrogen in your body, stiffens your arteries, and leaves your prostate inflamed and angry. Let's take a closer look at what might be sitting quietly in your cupboard right now. 4. Canned tomatoes with BPA linings. There's a moment I'll never forget. A man in his mid-60s, David, sat across from me in my office. His hands were folded tightly in his lap, eyes searching the floor. He wasn't there for chest pain or diabetes. He was there because he hadn't been intimate with his wife in over a year, and he didn't know why. "Doc, it's like the lights are on, but the power just isn't getting through." His heart was there, his love was strong, but something in his body had gone quiet, and the harder he tried to fix it, the more defeated he felt. We reviewed everything, his lifestyle, medications, diet, and that's when it hit me. He told me he was eating clean, which sounded great, until I looked closer. Every other meal involved tomato sauce, homemade chili, pasta, soup, all of it from cans. Simple, convenient, seemingly healthy. But for a man over 60, those canned tomatoes were silently doing harm. You see, the danger isn't the tomato itself. Tomatoes, especially cooked ones, can actually be good for you. The real problem lies in how they're stored. Most canned tomatoes are packaged in metal containers lined with a chemical called BPA or bisphenol A. This synthetic compound is used to prevent corrosion in cans, but once it leaches into the food, it starts doing something much more sinister inside your body. BPA is what we call an endocrine disruptor. That means it interferes with your hormones, particularly testosterone. It mimics estrogen, throwing off the natural balance in your body. And if you're over 60, you're already working with lower testosterone than you had in your prime. So when BPA gets into your system, it's like pouring cold water on an already weakening fire. It doesn't stop there. BPA has also been linked to blood vessel stiffening and arterial inflammation. That means the flexible tubes that used to deliver blood so easily, especially during arousal, become rigid, narrow, and less responsive. As a result, blood has a harder time reaching the penis, erections become weaker, or vanish completely. Intimacy turns into disappointment, and slowly, without warning, couples begin drifting apart, not from a lack of love, but from a breakdown in physiology. And here's the thing. This isn't just happening in rare cases. This is widespread. Canned tomatoes are in nearly every household pantry in America. They're cheap, they're easy, but they may be robbing you of your ability to feel close, feel strong, and feel like yourself. And if you're eating them week after week, month after month, that BPA builds up. It's a silent intruder, one you would never suspect, working against your body in the most private way. David didn't believe me at first. Tomatoes? Really? But I asked him to make a small change, switch to tomatoes stored in glass jars, or use fresh tomatoes and cook them down yourself. Within weeks, he began noticing the difference. He wasn't just improving physically, he was feeling more like a man again. And soon the distance between him and his wife began to close. What started with a diet change turned into real healing of his body, his marriage, and his confidence. Now, you might be wondering if even canned tomatoes can cause this kind of damage. What else is hiding in plain sight? What other seemingly healthy foods might be tightening your arteries, stealing your circulation, and slowly chipping away at the intimacy you value so deeply? The next vegetable on our list is especially deceptive. It's served at holiday dinners. It's recommended for gut health. It's pickled, fermented, and praised by wellness experts. But for men over 60, it packs a dangerous punch. one that raises your blood pressure, drains your libido, and hardens the very vessels you need to stay strong in the bedroom. Let's take a look at what's really happening inside that jar of so-called healthy vegetables and why you may want to think twice before taking another bite. 5. Pickled or fermented vegetables with excess salt and vinegar. When men come to see me about problems with intimacy, they rarely mention food. They talk about stress, age, even medications, but diet usually feels like an afterthought. And yet, in over 3 decades of helping older men restore their vitality, one thing has become crystal clear. What we eat is either healing us or harming us. And sometimes what seems healthy on the surface is quietly wreaking havoc beneath. One of the most overlooked culprits I see in men over 60, pickled and fermented vegetables. Yes, those crunchy cucumbers, tangy sauerkrauts, and spicy kimchis that are praised for gut health. I've seen men proudly tell me they're eating them every day, thinking they're doing their bodies a favor. And while these foods may offer some digestive benefits, especially in younger bodies, for older men they come with a hidden cost, one that directly affects blood flow and intimacy. Here's what most people don't realize. These pickled or fermented vegetables are often loaded with sodium and vinegar far beyond what your blood vessels can tolerate at this stage of life. As we age, our arteries lose flexibility. The lining that once expanded easily to allow blood to flow now stiffens. Add a high-salt diet to that equation, and you have the perfect storm for rising blood pressure and constricted circulation. Excess sodium causes your body to retain water, thickens the blood, and raises the pressure inside your arteries. That's already bad news for your heart, but it's devastating for the smaller, more delicate vessels that supply the penis. These tiny blood vessels are like the tips of tree branches, first to feel the strain when circulation is compromised. The result? Weaker erections, slower arousal, and an increasing emotional distance between you and the one you love. And vinegar, while natural, contains acetic acid, which in high quantities can irritate the lining of the stomach, interfere with potassium balance, and when combined with salt, further inflame your blood vessels. It's not uncommon for men who regularly eat fermented or pickled vegetables to begin noticing symptoms of dryness, reduced sensation, and even interrupted sleep, all subtle signs that their body's vascular system is under stress. I once had a patient named Leo. He was 69, sharp as a tack, and proud of how well he'd taken care of himself. He exercised daily, avoided fried foods, and ate his fermented vegetables religiously. It keeps the gut healthy, he told me with a smile. But behind that smile was a concern he hadn't shared with anyone else. His drive had dropped significantly. His erections were inconsistent. And his wife had begun to ask gently if everything was okay. When we reviewed his diet, the salt and vinegar content from his pickled vegetables jumped out immediately. He was consuming nearly double the daily recommended sodium just from condiments and fermented foods alone. I asked him to cut them out for 3 weeks. He was hesitant at first, but he trusted me, and when he returned, he looked different. More energy, warmer hands and feet, and most importantly, a renewed spark between him and his wife that he thought was gone for good. You see, it's not about denying yourself pleasure or flavor, it's about giving your body a fighting chance. The older we get, the more intentional we need to be. High sodium, high acid foods may have their place in moderation, but for men over 60 who are struggling with intimacy and blood flow, they can be silent saboteurs. Now you might be wondering, if so many common vegetables can work against you, what's left? Are there any foods that support circulation that can help you feel strong, responsive, and alive again? The answer is yes. And in fact, the very last thing I want to share with you is the part most men overlook, the solution. Not just what to avoid, but what to add. There are specific foods, natural, nourishing, and delicious, that have the power to restore blood flow, reignite your confidence, and bring you closer to your partner than you've felt in years. Let's talk about what to eat instead, because knowing what to avoid is only half the battle. The real victory lies in what you choose to nourish your body with next. 6. What you should eat instead. restore flow, restore intimacy. Every man who walks into my office comes in with a question. Sometimes he says it out loud, sometimes it's just in his eyes. But the question is always there, can I really get it back? And what he's really asking is whether he can reclaim his strength, his desire, his closeness with the woman he loves. Whether it's too late, or whether there's still something inside him worth fighting for. The truth I've seen time and again is this. The body may slow down after 60, but it doesn't stop responding. It just needs the right support. If the wrong foods can damage blood flow, the right foods can absolutely help restore it. The same way weeds choke a garden, harmful vegetables and chemicals can suffocate your circulation. But when you clear those out and begin feeding your body what it truly needs, you open the door to something remarkable. Renewed vitality, deeper connection, and the quiet confidence that you're still capable of intimacy and strength. So what should you be eating instead? First, let's talk about foods that naturally boost nitric oxide, that vital molecule your body uses to relax blood vessels and increase flow. Beetroot is one of my favorites. It's packed with nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide. A simple glass of beet juice or a serving of roasted beets a few times a week can work wonders. I've had men tell me they feel warmer, more alert, and more responsive just days after introducing it. Then there's watermelon. Most people don't know this, but watermelon contains a compound called L-citrulline, which helps open up blood vessels and improve performance. It's natural, hydrating, and refreshing, especially in the summer months when your energy tends to lag. Spinach and other leafy greens are another powerful addition. They help thin the blood just enough to keep things moving smoothly without putting pressure on the heart. And when you use fresh, organic greens instead of those soaked in salt or vinegar, you support circulation rather than harm it. Let's not forget garlic. Yes, it might give you a little kick on your breath, but what it does for your arteries is worth every clove. Garlic reduces inflammation in the vessel walls, lowers blood pressure, and increases overall blood flow. For many men, just a small daily dose has helped them feel more energized and more in tune with their partner. Avocados also deserve a place at your table. Their healthy fats support testosterone production, while the potassium helps counteract sodium and regulate blood pressure. They're creamy, satisfying, and do more for your circulation than most people give them credit for. And one of the most overlooked yet powerful foods? Cooked tomatoes, just not from BPA-lined cans. When you prepare them fresh or buy them in glass jars, you get a rich dose of lycopene, a nutrient that supports prostate health and helps reduce arterial stiffness. These foods aren't just nutrients, they're messengers. They tell your body it's safe to relax, to flow, to respond. They say, you still have time, you still have power. And when you start replacing the 4 damaging vegetables we've talked about with these healing ones, your body listens. I've seen it in men who were ready to give up, men who hadn't felt real connection in years. Once they made these changes, not drastic ones, but consistent, they started waking up differently, with warmth in their hands, with a little more spark in their eyes, with moments of closeness that hadn't been there in so long they'd forgotten what it felt like to be truly desired and to truly desire. This isn't about chasing youth. It's about reclaiming you. The man who still has so much to give, the man whose body still wants to serve him, if only he'd feed it the right way. Now, you've seen the full picture. You know which vegetables can harm your blood flow and drive, and which foods can reignite your strength. But there's still one more thing I need to share, perhaps the most important of all. It's the reason some men see results and others don't. It's not just about what you eat, but how you show up for your health, your partner, and yourself. In the final message, I want to leave you with something deeper. A truth every man over 60 deserves to hear, and a reminder that you're far from finished. Conclusion. As a doctor who has spent over 30 years walking beside men through their most personal struggles, I can tell you this: aging does not have to mean fading. It does not mean giving up on desire, on closeness, or on the quiet pride of knowing your body still serves you when you need it most. But the choices you make after 60 matter more than ever. They're not just about adding years to your life, they're about adding life to your years. We've talked about 4 vegetables that can quietly work against you, foods you may have been told were healthy, but that in your current season of life are doing more harm than good. Soy-based vegetables like edamame and soy sprouts may have a clean label, but their estrogen-mimicking compounds can throw your hormones off balance and make it harder for blood to flow where it needs to. Eggplant, with its iron-binding compound nasanin, can starve your muscles and your manhood of oxygen, weakening function, and robbing you of that warm, confident feeling of connection. Canned tomatoes, seemingly harmless, can introduce BPA into your system, shifting hormones, hardening arteries, and slowly chipping away at your ability to feel fully present with your partner. And pickled or fermented vegetables, especially the ones packed in salt and vinegar, may be praised for gut health, but they stiffen arteries, spike blood pressure, and quietly shut down the flow that keeps intimacy alive. These foods don't scream danger. They don't come with warning labels. They come dressed as health foods, subtle, trusted, even loved. But for the man over 60 who's working to protect every ounce of energy, confidence, and closeness, they can be the silent saboteurs. But here's the part I want you to really hear. This is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a better chapter, if you choose it. Because your body hasn't stopped listening. It's waiting. It's still responding, and when you start feeding it the right messages through the right foods that support nitric oxide, reduce inflammation, and bring your hormones back into balance, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to feel warmer. Your mornings feel lighter. That familiar tension between you and your partner begins to soften. You make eye contact again. You laugh more. You touch more. And those little moments, the ones that once felt out of reach, begin to return. I've seen this with my own patients. Men who came in defeated, silent, disconnected, who made small, consistent changes and found their way back to themselves. Not the man they used to be, but the man they still are when blood flows freely and confidence returns. So I want to ask you something now, not as your doctor, but as a man who's listened to thousands of stories from husbands, fathers, veterans, workers, and friends. What would it mean to feel like yourself again? What would it mean to wake up with strength, not just in your body, but in your spirit? It starts with your choices, with the food on your plate, with removing what harms and welcoming what heals, with giving yourself the same care and attention you've likely given to others your whole life. Because you matter. Your health matters. Your intimacy matters. The good news is you don't need a miracle. You need awareness. You need the truth. And you need the willingness to take that first step, to clean out the foods that are hurting your flow and to nourish yourself with what actually supports the man you still are. So if this message has stirred something in you, if it's made you rethink what's been quietly holding you back, then I invite you to act. Start with one change, one meal, one decision to support the life and connection you still long for, because it's not too late. In fact, if you're listening to this now, it may be just the right time. You are not broken. You are not too old, and you are absolutely not alone. You're a man whose body still remembers how to respond. All it needs is the right signal. Let today be the day you give it.